This is Red Ice Radio. From the dream to reality. RedIceCreations.com.
A warm welcome to all our listeners from around the world, wherever you may be. My name is Henrik Palmgren, and it is indeed great to have you with us today for another radio program. RedIceCreations.com is our website. You can stream or download radio on demand that you can listen to at your convenience. George Kavassilas is with us today for a 2-hour update. We last talked with him in January, and we are going to continue our discussion on world events, new developments, and also some of his views on Christianity, the Roman Catholic Church, the message of Jesus, the communion, and the crucifixion. We also talk about different ET races, theirs and ours process of ascension, changes in our solar system, genetic activation, journeys to Mars and the Moon, Project Genesis, and some dark stuff about the shadow government, the elite, the royal families, and their satanic ritual abuse. Stay with us for a very interesting program with George Kavassilas. Great to have you back again for an update. How have you been since we last talked, George?
Oh, hello, Henrik. So great to be here once more with you again, discussing life. I really appreciate it. And life has been very busy. It's I've got to say, I'm going to use the word astonishing. I'm astounded at the response that I'm receiving from people from all over the world. It truly is astonishing. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's been an astonishing 2 months as well since we last had you on. January, at the end of January, and now we're at the end of March here, and things have unfolded rapidly, if I put it that way, at least from my perspective, with real, massive sun activity kicking up. We've had, obviously, earthquakes, as people are aware. We've had tsunamis, and now we have a dire situation over in Japan, and also, obviously, in the rest of the world, where we've even begun to measure heightened radiation levels up here in Sweden and in Finland as well. I mean, all of the northern hemisphere anyway is subjected to this in one way or another. What is your take on all of this as well, George? Do you see that some of these things are part of the incoming energies to the planet, and also I tended to forget that we have a war now even in Libya unfolding as we speak. There's just so much to keep track on.
Yeah, there's for me, the change that's occurring on the planet and the solar system definitely have to do with the waves of energy that are coming towards us from the center of the galaxy. And I'll just cover a little bit of ground as we did before, but not much. It really, we have this thing called a serpent rope, and it's an umbilical cord. It really is an umbilical cord that connects this planet to the center of the galaxy. And like when a child is born, the mother sends down that umbilical cord a whole surge of nutrients and blood and energy that's required for that child to birth. And that's what's happening. We're getting this incredible surge of energy coming from the center of the galactic womb through to the core of the sun, and then with the sun changing itself as well, and then to the core of the earth, because Mother Earth is giving birth to this new race of beings here. So that's probably the best analogy I could give. And what we're seeing here with the earthquakes and everything, it's got everything to do with the changes that are happening here. And I for one don't buy into the HARP comments too much.
Right.
They are definitely the reasons why some earthquakes have occurred, but I'll say the Chilean earthquake and the Japanese earthquake, to me, I don't see that they are caused by HARP. I honestly feel that they are a direct result of the Earth beginning to straighten up on her axis. And on the Chilean one, she straightened up by 8 centimeters, and on the Japan one, she straightened up by 30 centimeters. So we're beginning to see the early stages of the pole shift occurring, and to me that's what's going on. And really, if you you know, people love drama, Henrik.
Yeah.
They really love the drama. And for all the people whose mindsets are still caught up in the what I consider the conspiratorial realm, you know, they want it to be HARP because that's where they're at. And I understand that that's how they're seeing it. You know, it's going to get to the stage where people are just going to have to come to terms with the fact that the planet is changing herself, and it's not always technology and ETs and conspiracy groups behind the scenes. It's actually the planet herself doing it. So hopefully people will begin to see that for themselves and understand what's actually going on here, because the more we tend to focus on things like HARP, the more we give them power. And really the agenda behind the scenes, they want you to think it's HARP. They really do, because that empowers them. And it takes a focus away from the natural order of things, the much greater processes at hand to do with the intention of the planetary consciousness itself, you know?
Yeah.
And the intention of the solar consciousness. You know, these are beings and bodies we are incarnated on and inside of. So, you know, you got to realize who has the ultimate say here.
Absolutely. I would agree on that conclusion. I think that there's other suspects in terms of earthquakes and technology, like the earthquake in Haiti, obviously, and other things as well. But in this particular case, for me anyway, what was the defining shift was because of the activity of the sun. We had 2 X-class flares really close to, you know, when the earthquake actually happened. And again, people need to be aware that there's a massive amount of energy coming into the planet, and so obviously the tectonic plates are going to react in one way or another to that, and then we have all these changes. But does that to you then mean as well, if we're on the path of straightening up the axis, as we talked about last time, George, that we're going to see more and more earthquakes, or is this going to also manifest itself in different ways, maybe?
Well, I feel that we will see more and more earthquakes, and eventually it'll get to a point where we're going to see more volcanic activity, because really the amount of movement that's taking place beneath the crust is phenomenal. Really, there's activity all over the planet, and it's almost like she's really just holding it together and stopping from the whole thing just going crazy. And people just don't realize how much Mother Earth is holding back. And she's really putting so much force into play here just to leave it right to the very end. And we're just going to see it'll be a gradual increase of earthquake activity and tsunamis. Unfortunately, that's part of the process. And, you know, people are not aware enough to be able to relocate themselves, follow their intuitive guidance to know that where, you know, if they've got a beachfront property, and some people there are some people who are saying, well, you know, maybe it's not such a good idea anymore. Maybe it's time to relocate. And there are some people that are going about that and following their intuitive guidance, but other people are just not. They're just so disconnected and just still living in that, you know, that fog of the matrix, and they can't see really what's going on around them.
What do you make of some of the nuclear radiation that's leaking out now? Is that, I guess, could we view this as just being an unfortunate side effect of human regards stupidity, or is that part of the bigger agenda in some way as well? What do you think, George?
Yeah, I don't think those nuclear reactors were targeted, so to speak. I think they're just a side effect of basically just a tsunami hitting the coastline. And really, to have placed a reactor right on the coastline, I think that is quite silly. I don't think there was that much thought given to the process. And really, I mean, that's where it just comes into it. Just not really that much thought given into the processes, and we're going to see, unfortunately, the side effects of that, or, you know, the reaping the sods that we have seed, so to speak.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, what if we briefly talk about the so-called intervention, the attack on Libya? How do you view that, or George? Don't know if you've been following the story much, but obviously we at this point know that the so-called coalition, many people speculate that NATO obviously is behind this. We're seeing Kosovo basically repeated here. What is that all about from your point of view, George?
Yeah, from my point of view, I haven't been following it that much, but what's really obvious to me, Henrik, is you've got the military-industrial complex of the US and globally, and that's a machine that needs wars in order to survive and to keep going and maintain its power and its hold on the reins that it has, and to actually increase and get its tentacles further into the psyche of the people and the control structures on the planet. And so you have wars that just need to continue to happen, and they're also very good deterrents and also distractions. So it's been said before, but I'll say it again: it is a battle for everyone's awareness. And so if there's a war going on, it'll keep people occupied in so many different ways on so many levels, and there's levels within the shadow government, the ruling elite, whatever you want to call it, the Illuminati. There's just so many different, I would say, branches and arms to this whole paradigm that they don't have an understanding of the grander awareness, and they truly believe what they're doing is the right thing for the future of mankind because they're so caught up in that political drama. And, there's a big fight going on between the East and the West from that perspective, like in that arena. And they're totally engrossed in that, and they can't see outside of that.
Now, all of these, revolutions or whatever we, want to dub them, that has been unfolding both in the Middle East, but also primarily now on, in Northern Africa. Do you see that is part of something of a positive change, that people are demanding things to be shifted around in their own countries and government, and that could that be seen as something positive from your point of view, or is it all manipulated by the Western forces again to kind of further instigate control further down the road of these countries? What do you think, George?
Yeah, the grand irony I see too, Henrik, is that it's kind of like there was beings a while back that tried looking into the future. So you have the controlling authorities on the planet who are being, I would say, manipulated or led by these off-world overlords, and it's really a bit like a script. They're trying to, I would say, make it happen. They're trying to destabilize the whole Middle East to create that holy war on one level. And unfortunately, that's how they see it. They truly do see that, and they truly believe that what they are doing is true and righteous. And some want the war to happen so God could actually come to earth. And it's really ironic when you sit back and you look at the way this reality plays out, because, it is kind of like a movie, and the events are sort of like fixed anyway. So it's a bit of a contradiction what I just said, but I just explain things from two different levels of consciousness. So if you know it from a higher level, you know that the future's already happened, and if you know it from the lower level, then you look at it from the point of view of free will, and that we're all making choices here. So I wouldn't buy too much into these smaller battles that are going on, because they do serve as a distraction, and there's something more insidious that's going on behind the scenes on a much grander level than people are actually aware of. But I must say there are more and more people becoming aware of it by the day because of the feedback that I'm getting from all over the world.
Prophecy written in stone, pretty much. It's a dangerous thing, obviously, because it might be turning out to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I see that's a part of the Armageddon program, if you will, that many of the religions are kind of carrying within them. So how much of this is part, to blame, if we can use that word, on religion, George, and maybe tying into that as well, we can go into this topic of the church that you wanted to address a little bit as well. I know.
Yeah, there's a lot to do with that religion, because pretty much everybody in the higher aspects of our government layers and getting into like the ruling elite layers and all that, you'd be surprised how spiritual all these people are, and they really, having gone through the ranks of the Freemasons and all the secret societies and what have you, there's not that many who are just mechanical in nature. The majority of them are actually very, very spiritual in nature, and they all have their belief systems. And I would say there's barely a handful of them that actually really, really do know what's going on, and they're finding it very difficult to continue to function in this paradigm. But where does religion come into it? It is a big deal, religion. It's been a big part of it for so long. It's, prior to 2,000 years ago, we had the ancient priesthoods, and I've got to be honest with you, Henrik, I think people have to be quite naive to think that the modern day priesthood is any different to the ancient priesthood.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah.
I don't see any difference. In the ancient, I'm gonna share something with you and the listeners that is going to be quite profound and controversial for some, but I feel it needs to be shared because there are those of us who can actually see and do know what's going on, and because people are inside the fog. If you're in the fog, you can't see it. You're not aware of what you're doing. But once you begin to, grasp these concepts, then it helps you snap out of the fog. And for me, I was christened a Greek Orthodox, and I went to a Catholic high school. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually bringing into question my religion. So if anyone takes offence to this, they've got to look at themselves and, look at their own issues. But I'm now going to discuss my religion, Christianity. And first thing, the difference between churchianity and Christianity is quite profound. And churchianity is an institution, an organisation that was created by the priesthoods. So it's got nothing to do with the original teachings of Jesus, and that's a well-known fact to many. But the part that I want to share is if we just actually take a look at what I've got to say, they're quite hypocritical. In the fact that they will say that any kind of rituals or ghastly rituals that are performed are demonic and evil and wrong, and if it's not a part of the church, then it's it's all wrong. Well, I just want to take this thing called communion. We'll go straight to the hardcore facts, and I'm gonna take a look at communion now. When I was a child and I was asked to eat the bread and drink the wine, I would actually get this sick feeling in my stomach and in my chest area for hours. And I was wondering why that was happening. I just did not feel good. It felt wrong to me. So I stopped participating to the disappointment of my parents. But lucky I had parents who were, understanding enough to allow me to make those sort of choices. And then I started realizing things later on in life, why I stopped doing that as a child. And then I really, really looked at it, and here we are. You eat a piece of bread, and that is supposed to represent flesh, the body of Christ. And then you drink the wine, and that is supposed to represent the blood of the Christ. And through the process of this ritual, you're supposed to integrate more with the Christ energy. But throughout my experiences of life, I know that we all have the Christ already within us. So it brings into question what people are actually doing. It really does.
Yeah.
And the Christ energy that I know, that the experiences that I've had with, never has asked people to perform rituals of any kind at all, ever. The Christ energy that I know just wants you to continue to be you and live your life's experiences and learn. So it keeps it very simple. The Christ energy I know, very, very simple indeed. So where do these rituals come from? And when you actually look at it, what are you performing? You're performing a flesh and blood ritual. So when you look at the ancient priesthoods who were sacrificing animals and doing these blood rituals in the temples in the ancient world, here you have the modern day version of that. And yes, it's become more sophisticated, but I don't care how anybody tries to justify it or dress it up in any way, shape or form. What people are performing is a flesh and blood ritual. And that to me is not the work of the Christ. That to me is the work of the Antichrist. And so you bring into question who's running the church. What's really going on.
Yeah.
And we've really got to look at this realistically. And people will be horrified at what I just said, but you've got to be realistic. You are performing a flesh and blood ritual. You do it regularly. So why are you doing it? We all have the Christ already within us. The kingdom of heaven is within. So what is this all about really? And these are the questions people need to be asking.
Now, what do you see that the Christian church is an outcrop of then? I mean, we have, on one end, we had, Judaism with the various sacrifices of animals in their religion. On the other side of that, we have, coming out of the ancient Roman world, with Mithraism and various, bull sacrifices and things like that. And then Christianity comes as a kind of a merger, I guess, of these two, then in one sense, and take it one step further, and then make a blood ritual out of a human, or sacrifice, or actually even then the deity of their own, worship, pretty much, and makes that into the sacrifice. It's kind of strange if you think about it, isn't it? Why would they sacrifice that deity?
I think it's kind of sick, if you ask me. I do. First of all, I'll say that categorically because I used to feel sick when I was a part of it, and I honestly think it's quite sick, and people need to actually realise what they're doing. But they're brainwashed. People have been brainwashed into thinking that they're doing something wonderful, and that's the clever trick that these negative universal energies play on people. It really is dastardly. And the other irony of it is the church will complain about anything that's pagan. They use this word pagan.
Yeah.
It's a label that they use, and they turn everybody away from anything natural. And I question that as well, because I say, well, let's take a look at that, shall we? So what's Easter? How is Easter worked out?
Yeah.
Easter's worked out on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the equinox. So, hello.
Absolutely.
This is, the hypocrisy is amazing. You look at Christmas. What's Christmas about? It's certainly not the birth of the Christ. It's about the sun.
Yeah.
It's about the winter solstice, the sun reaching its furthest most point, and then 3 days of stationary points on the horizon, and then the sun is reborn. And so that's what Christmas is all about.
Yeah.
And you just, the moment you just stop and you take a look, you take a step back and you think, crikey, what's actually really going on here? And who's actually running the church? And in my travels, I got to discover, and we touched this subject briefly last time, this entity known as Jehovah, And so you have this entity who lives, okay, because I know where this entity lives. I took the journey up through the dimensions of the universe for those who are not familiar with my work, and which we won't go into now because, obviously we're much further down the track in this discussion. And I know exactly where this entity lives, and he lives and functions and operates in the higher reaches of the fourth dimension. And so here you have an entity that wants to be the creator of all things, is totally self-deluded, and claims to be the creator of all things. When if you travel into the higher realms, then automatically you know that we are all eternal and infinite, and that nothing exists beyond our own essence. So there is not one single God matrix construct entity that is the ruler and creator of all things. That's just not true.
Now, how do you view this then? Can we equate Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever with another force that is mentioned in the same scriptures? I mean, it becomes weird when we go to the same type of scriptures to define something that, this entity has come out of that scripture. But if we, commonly people will understand it. Well, if we say Satan then or something like that, the antithesis to this other force of good, if you will. Do you believe that Satan then in one sense have taken over the church, or is that force to begin with coming from the inventor rather of Christianity? The satanic forces is the inventor of Christianity. How do you view that, George?
Yeah, that's a very good point. First I'll just look at what the word actually means. The word Satan, what does it mean? What's its origins? And my understanding is that it means adversary in Aramaic. So adversary, okay, so adversary to who?
Yeah.
Who are we talking about here?
Exactly.
So if you have a false god that has come down and he claims to be the god, and he creates a church full of flesh and blood rituals and ceremonies, and gets people to get down on their knees praying and begging for mercy like subservient slaves, and he's calling another entity Satan, then I'd be focusing on this entity called Satan. I'm not talking about satanic cults. Okay, that's different.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at the original. Let's go back 2,000 years at least, and let's get to the original interpretations and meanings, not what things have become of late. All right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not into this Satan worship stuff. My father was a Freemason, and it's taken me a lifetime to get these entities out of my bloodline, out of my body, and deprogram a lot of stuff that went on with that.
Yeah.
So I'm not into anything like that. Now, having said that, there's some good Freemasons in the world, so let's not just throw a wet blanket over everything, shall we?
Sure.
I'm always going to be realistic, okay? So there are a handful of Freemasons that actually know the real story and know what's going on, and I'll totally agree with what I'm saying. And even members of the church who really know what's going on in there will agree with what I'm saying too. I assure you of that. And so, yeah, this thing about Satan, because it's adversary. So if you've got, like I said, a false god, plain God, and he has another being called adversary, then really, when Jesus turned up and started exposing everything, he would have been called Satan. The priesthood would have called him the devil back then. Mm-hmm. And they did. They crucified the guy. So to me, he did walk this earth. He's the incarnation of the sun out there in the sky. And he's come to this planet many times. Has there only ever been one Jesus? Yep. There's only ever been one Jesus. But has there only ever been one Henrik? Yes. You know, this lifetime you're Henrik, but who were you in another lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm George in this lifetime. Who was I in another lifetime? So this is the point I'm trying to make, you know, when the religions claim that Jesus has only ever come once to the planet. Well, yeah, as Jesus, but the consciousness has come many times. It's been to the planet many times. It's been here even since the time of as the life of Jesus. He came and he was known as King Arthur. And that's not a fable. This is not theory. This is not a story. He has had inconspicuous lives that people are not aware of. So he's experienced everything, because really if Jesus was the God, the creator, the male expression of this universe walking this earth, then he's not going to sit there all high and mighty and expect everybody to experience everything while he just remains detached and disconnected. He's going to get down and dirty with the people. He's going to, everything he's got going on with the people, he's going to come and do himself as well. So if someone is a slave, he's had a lifetime as a slave. If someone's a king, he's had a lifetime as a king. So that's how I understand the universe to be, and that's how I understand the universal creator. And, you know, and people who are listening now, you've got to understand who and what the creator of this universe is. So you've got to look back over my material to understand where everything fits in. Otherwise, I'll just be taken out of context.
Let's address this aspect of the symbol of the cross, you know, or the crucified Jesus as their symbol. I personally always thought that this was pretty interesting that they chose to have the means of torture of the Christ as their symbol, you know, wearing around their necks and so forth as well. Could that be a little hint of the true mentality, if you will, of the church as well, by focusing on the torture and the blood and the carnage of this sacrifice as well? It's very an obvious person would see it as a kind of a satanic, you know, aspect, if you will. It's weird, isn't it?
It is a bit weird, and on one level, I think there's many levels to begin with, as to, because, you know, symbols are multidimensional. I feel there's not. I don't think there's. You got sort of like the original intention as to why someone creates a symbol, but they always turn out to have many layers and many interpretations, and according to people's awarenesses. So for me, I think a very important interpretation of what the crucifix is, for me, that it's quite, I would say, quite profound in the fact that the crucifix represents the sword. Now, you'll notice that the sword is actually an icon throughout the ages, the sword of Troy. You have samurai, the way of the sword. And if you actually look at the way the crucifix, Jesus crucified on the mound, it's understanding what the sword actually represents symbolically. And that symbol of the crucifix in the mound is no different actually to Excalibur in the stone.
Yeah.
Those symbols are identical. And for me, the sword represents wisdom and knowledge and truth. And so when one wields the sword, for example, Muhammad saying spread Islam via the sword, he didn't actually mean going around killing people. The sword actually, you know, is knowledge and wisdom. And when you actually can speak the logos or the knowledge or the wisdom of the universe, then you literally cut through the lies and the illusion. That's why the old saying, truth hurts. And it can hurt because when someone speaks truth to you and you are not ready and willing to understand or listen or even entertain the idea of truth, it's going to really make you feel very uncomfortable. And that's why they use the sword as the symbol for that, because it cuts through the lies and the illusion.
Absolutely. People have also argued, obviously, just take away the S and you get word, meaning speaking the truth, or you know.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. The word, which is, it's not words printed on ink paper or in a book. It's actually, the word is a vibrational pattern, which is the logos, which is the sound and the templates to life. So that's when you speak the wisdom and the truth, that's actually the realm of which you come from and which you are expressing. You become that and you are that. Yeah. And also I just wanted to say that they nailed him to the cross. So in other words, it was basically wisdom and knowledge died that day, and his death heralded the Dark Ages. And if I may just branch over now to me sharing what I feel deeply is the actual true sacrifice of the Christ. Because if we look at this from the point of view of okay, he was beaten pretty badly, and he was whipped and he was tortured and things like that. And for me, that's not enough, as crazy as it sounds, because if I look before his time and I look during the time of around 2,000 years ago and I look since that time, I've seen people that have been beaten and tortured a lot worse than what he was. I myself, for one, in this life have been tortured really, really badly in many insidious ways with high technology. So really, I just, because when you're in that realm, when you're actually being tortured, you go to layers deep inside of yourself. You really do. You reach new territory you never thought even existed within yourself. I've been there, right? And you really start to look at life. And in those modes, I started thinking to myself what it was like for him when he was being tortured. And you just have these moments when you're in that state of being. And so I looked into that after that, and in my other experiences I had throughout that travel through the universe, I communicated with that consciousness, what we call the Christ consciousness, and that's where I really remembered and got the knowledge of who the planet is, who the sun is, the solar system, who the galaxy is. And I won't go into too much of that detail again, but we'll just go on to the level of the sun. And that's an aspect of the male consciousness of this universe. So when I said that Jesus was the incarnation of the sun, and you got some religions saying, was that God walking this earth? Literally, yes, it was. And he's come in many times before as Buddha and Krishna and Ra and all sorts of things. Not the versions of these entities we're presented with today, like, you know, as we know Ra today or as we know Buddha and Krishna, but the original incarnations and what they were sharing. And so what was that sacrifice? What was it all about? And if you know who the essence and the spirit of this earth is, then you realize it's the feminine aspect of the universal creator. And so here you have twin flame energy. We're talking about the feminine expression of this universe and the masculine expression of this universe. And to know what his sacrifice was, he walked the earth in an incarnated form, and he died. Now, he, in that moment, relinquished his authority as a husband, right? And I don't mean his authority of ownership and putting down the feminine, just as a husband has to his wife. He actually relinquished his authority over this domain in that capacity. He actually stepped back from his own wife in that moment. We're talking about the consciousness of the sun. So if people can just stop and just contemplate this for a moment, that he's incarnated onto his wife's body, and he goes through this process where he says, right, I'm going to allow myself to die. It's going to herald the beginning of the Dark Ages. We're going to plunge this planet further into dense, dark duality, which means he's taken a step back from his wife. And he had to sit there as the view from the sun. Now let's go back into the consciousness of the sun, and you're looking at your wife in full view, and in full view she was allowed to be ravaged by darkness. Now, if you want to talk about sacrifice, if anyone's in any form of relationship, whether it be heterosexual or homosexual, because you always have the masculine and the feminine roles in each of those as well. So you can imagine the masculine pulling back from the feminine and allowing his beloved to actually be ravaged by others. Then you understand the level of sacrifice that has been made here, because Mother Earth manifested herself as a planet who was going to facilitate the birthing of this new race of beings. And here we are as humanity on her body, and she, together with him, have given us such a sacrifice. What they have done for us is so forgotten, Henrik. It is so forgotten that she had to plunge herself into these dark depths. And then you got the feminine energy being burned at the stake, and people being beaten and tortured and raped and pillaged through those dark ages. Yeah. I mean, we're talking horrendous energies here. And so, this isn't some sort of weird religion that's being created here or anything like that. This is just being practical and realistic. And I urge anybody, don't take my word for it. Connect with Mother Earth herself and ask her. Connect with Father Sun and ask him. And just understand what is actually going on around here, because the most basic foundation of our existence here has been forgotten. And if it hasn't been forgotten through religions, then it's been forgotten by this whole drama that's been created here for this battle for our attention by these extraterrestrial empires that we're currently being exposed to as well.
The church has most certainly been the most played the most prominent role when it comes to heralding the dark ages. And if there is a point to the dense dark duality that you talk about, then the church have fulfilled their role in that game, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. And what I just shared with you, anybody who's of the Vatican, they now know that I know. And this is the biggest piece of secret that they want kept hidden from the masses. They would be absolutely horrified that I'm sharing this information with you. And really, they have played such an important role it'll all depend on what level you're going to view this from. Because if you view it from inside the drama, it's horrendous, it's disgusting. And the way they have treated humanity, it's all about the oppression of the human spirit. It's not about light and love and freedom and liberation. It's about funneling and channeling the human psyche and the human spirit and the human souls into a particular paradigm which is led by these demiurges playing gods to the masses. And that's all it is. They want to be fed. I mean, you go from this point of view of people falling to their knees in the churches in the days of old, and people that still do in the modern day churches. And then you have the modern day churches where they're singing songs. So let's get more sophisticated at giving our power away. So what we're going to do is we're going to sing songs, and we're going to actually be joyful about it. So instead of falling to our knees and praying to a God in a subservient manner, now we're actually going to celebrate the fact that we're subservient, and we're going to pray to this character called Jesus, and we're just going to project and continue to feed this entity for all we're worth. It's amazing how they have fooled so many masses of people to do this all around the world. It's horrendous, I've got to tell you.
What is the bigger game here? What is unfolding? Why has the dark ages of humanity been necessary, George?
Okay, from a much larger and higher perspective, it was necessary so we could bottom out. I mean, we've taken this incredible journey down through this universe, an incredible journey, and we explored all possibilities and outcome on every single level. Therefore, we have gained all that knowledge and all that wisdom. So to take our separation to the nth degree, we went through what was called the Dark Ages, and now we're coming out of that. And as we're coming out of that, they wanted, it was like, let me put it this way, they were contracted by all of us collectively from much higher levels of consciousness the darkness actually serves us. Okay, I'm getting right outside duality now. We're going really high up. It serves us. We actually contract them. They're actually role playing for us, and so we needed to be tested to the nth degree, and that's why they have come here. And we've got the best, most sophisticated mind control programs and manipulative programs available in the universe, which are imposing themselves on humanity. And without that test, then we don't get to work out who's got it and who hasn't got it, who's ready to become a universal creator of light. So we're at graduation point here now, and so we needed to go through those dark ages and bottoming out, and now we're coming back out of that.
Interesting. So we needed to be tested in one way, but why couldn't this have been done with us knowing what is going on? Why do we need to kind of end up in this daze, if you will, that we're all doing? Even you know, we might take the view that we're reincarnating over and over again, experiencing this, or even if it's just for the one lifetime, we're born into oblivion about this, and we have no idea what is going on whatsoever. Well, a few of us does, obviously. We get hints, we are intuitive and so forth, but really we don't have the certainty of what it actually is, right?
Yeah, and that's the challenging part of it. If we knew what was going on, then we wouldn't have the experiences to the degree that we'd be having. So the veil, part of the veil, there's an aspect of genius to it, simply because without having that knowledge, to be stripped of life's knowledge and knowing, and to be totally vulnerable, then what are you left with? You know, you're left with, you got to dig deep. You got to really dig deep into yourself. And that's it, because we journeyed into this vast separation throughout the cosmos, and we've lived these lives of these galactic empires and the ET level of life, and we've done that. I know I've done that, and I know many people that I communicate with all around the world. We've been there and we've done that. We're finished with that, and we're coming out of that now. See? And so we're now here on planet Earth, where it all gets put together. We're bringing everything in the balance, and everything that we've done and everything that we've been. So this is the very last stages of our journeys. I'm done, Henrik. I'm done. I don't know about you, mate, but I'm done. And I'm leaving this paradigm of duality, and I'm about to become something that I intended to become when I first embarked on this journey inside this universe. And I've learned all aspects of life. I have been the most evil of evil that has ever existed. I'm strong enough to get up and say that. All the self-righteous ones will never, ever admit to that. Okay, they can't go there because they don't have it. All right? So I have been the most evil of evil that has ever existed. And I've been the most loving of loving that has ever existed. So I've been it all and I've done it all. And now I'm going through this graduation process where I'm ready to become what I've originally intended to become. And that's a creator of light.
Absolutely. And what level of activity or participation will the sun act in the role of turning this around now again? Then what are we? How does the future look, if we ask that question, George?
Yeah, the future looks fantastic, because look, everyone's on their journey. So let's go high up again, and we'll say ultimately there's no right and wrong. So, you know, where I'm going is not necessarily good for another soul who's not ready to ascend. So, you know, what's about to happen on this planet is, for me, is just so fantastic, because Mother Earth is about to go through this birthing process, and we're going to evolve into these beings that are the complete embodiment of universal consciousness. And that's what Buddha and Jesus and, you know, and Krishna, everyone was trying to tell everybody from the very beginning, that, you know, we have it all within us, and we're about to become like them, and if not even better. So that's the intended outcome there. And I think it's wonderful what's about to occur, because we all tend to just focus on the deconstruction and the negative.
Sure.
It's, you know, like I said, we love the drama, so it's habitual. We can't help it at the moment. So, you know, in my talks, I give these seminars that some of them go for over 10 hours, and people are just like, at the end of it, they're saying, but George, I don't feel too good. I said, well, you don't feel too good because it's it's your stuff that's coming to the surface, for starters, and it's how you want to view all this. I said, and I have to summarize. I said, remember what I said? You know, the planet's going to ascend. We're going to become universal creators of love and light and life itself, you know, the outcome is incredibly beautiful. You're going to go and start creating your own universe using the construct of light. You're going to have an aspect of you on Mother Earth who's going to become a being of light, and that embodiment of universal consciousness, and then you're going to be able to go around and do anything and everything in this universe. So there's just so much positivity to it. But if I can use an analogy, it's like a mother's going to give birth to a child, and you know what? It'd be like the mother only focusing on the labour pains. Like everybody is only focusing on the labour pains, and no one's giving any thought or concept to the child that's been born. And that's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing. So what I say to people is, yes, we're all commenting on the drama and the negativity and the deconstructive part of this reality, but please don't forget what we're actually here about. And that's to birth this new construct of life. So let's start maybe focusing a bit more on the creativity of what's actually going on here.
I think it's the reason why it's difficult for many people is again goes back to that idea of that we're born into oblivion in that sense. It's like we're like a cell in the body that is getting ready to give birth, but we have just been created as cells are in our body. We've just been born during this time of labor, so we don't know anything else. We don't see anything else, right? So we need to connect with a bigger picture of understanding what is going on, and that's for some people very difficult to do, right?
It is. Hasn't been easy for me neither, Henrik, and I don't forget that. So, yeah, I don't want to come across as being all self-righteous about it, because I'm not. I'm a very realistic person, and it's just so difficult when we're in that fog. And what I say to people is the one thing I do know about this process is that we're all going to awaken automatically. So you don't actually have to do a particular course or eat certain foods or meditate in a certain way.
Right.
It's actually going to happen automatically because, there's people who like Mary Lou being a mother of 3 kids working 2 part-time jobs just to keep her kids and herself going. She hasn't got time to be, doing courses and meditation groups and all that, but she's going to ascend. You know what I mean? So people have got to actually relax a bit more about it, understand that this journey we're all on has a much grander design to it than just this one lifetime.
Last time we had you with us, George, you mentioned the 21st of March, 2013, a date for, I guess you said the point for when this is happening. Are you still standing by that? Do you feel that that's still true?
Yeah, more so than ever, Henrik. And things are just heading that way. They really are. The indicators are all around us. There are people that are sharing with me from all over the world that they have had this knowing for some time within them, but they were too frightened to speak out because nobody else was talking about it. So you'd be surprised how many people know of this within themselves. It's actually, like I said, it's a bit astonishing, to be honest, and it's a good feeling. It really is, because this, there's just this knowing innate. They didn't get this information from me. Do you know what I mean? They already knew this inside of themselves, and that's what I try to share with people. We actually already have this knowing. It's just going to become apparent to some before it becomes apparent to others, and we're all going to do this at stages along the journey over the next couple of years, and I really don't have concerns about it whatsoever.
Interesting. So do you see this, you're part of this process as well to give people an idea of what is happening and what is going on, or is it more to remind people about this and get people to resonate with some of these ideas, George?
Yeah, I'm providing a trigger because we're in the movie. And people and say, George, you're contradicting yourself because, you said it's going to happen anyway, so why bother telling anyone? And this is a really excellent sort of situation, Henrik, to entertain.
Yeah.
Because, it's like the concept of free will. Do we have free will? Yes, we do, and no, we don't.
Yeah.
So there's a contradiction right there. So from down here, yes, we do. From up there, no, you don't. So, from down here, I've got a role to play, and people will say, well, why don't you just sit back in a cave and do nothing? And I'd love to just go back home and just potter in my garden, not worry about anything. But if you look at it as a movie, we're all inside this movie, and if an actor doesn't play their role, then the movie doesn't quite work out, does it? It's like something's missing.
Yeah.
So I'm just playing my role in the movie because we're all role playing for one another down here. And I've come to realize what my role in the movie is all about, and that's to provide triggers for everybody. So I'm walking between dimensions and between, universes, because I understand the greater scheme of things and I understand my role down here. So it's taken me a while for my ego to get out of the way and just go into the flow of things. And I really feel good. I'm flowing, and I'm helping to provide these triggers for people, and it's fun playing my role in the movie. And when you really connect with what's going on, it's easy to share it because I don't have to try and convince people of something that isn't true.
Yeah,
it really gets quite easy because there's a process at hand, and like once you get past the veils, it's like you've got the veil of the planet. And then you've got this veil, I call it the cosmic veil, because that's what is being imposed on humanity at the moment by these extraterrestrial races that we're exposed to currently. We've got their paradigm, this particular group of ETs. They're within a particular paradigm. So we're exposed to that at the moment. And when you get past that level as well, you get in connection with these other paradigms of life, which then go universal. And so you've got extraterrestrial groups and all sorts of life beyond, which totally know what's going on here. Everyone's talking about planet Earth. Everyone's getting ready for this great process of Mother Earth becoming a light body, or if you want to call it a star, which people have a problem with. But a light body and a star are pretty much the same thing, from this level. So, yeah, everybody out there knows about it, Henrik. It's just that in here, it's not that many.
I want to ask you a little bit more about some of these the ET races here, and if they are going to go through a similar process as well. I think that would be interesting. But why don't we just talk a little bit about mention your website and some of your talks that you have coming up. We're going to do obviously continue here with another hour with you, George, as well. But this might be a good idea to take just a slight little breather and a little pause here. But you have a speaking engagement now coming up in England. You're going to do a little tour there, isn't that right?
Yeah, that is. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. We're heading over to begin with May in Spain at the Science of Spirituality conference. There, I've been asked to appear there, and then we're heading over to England, and we're doing talks in Glastonbury and Stonehenge and a few other places. And really, I'm so excited about going there. I've got to tell you, Henrik. And we're coming to Sweden.
There you go. That's right. Of course.
Oh, mate, that's really good. And we're going to Greece and Slovenia and a couple of other countries. So we're very much looking forward to it. And we're just creating a new website called www.our-journey-home.com. My old website, the construct of it just can't cope with the traffic of today. And so we've got some people on board who are helping us out, and we're creating a really, really good new website that'll cope a lot better with, the requirements of far greater traffic.
Okay, very good. Spain, then Glastonbury, and up in Stonehenge, England, then coming up to Sweden as well, of course. And you have currently, I guess, information about this then on your main current website, georgekavassilas.org. We're going to obviously link this up for people in case you have difficulty spelling George's last name. But would you know when the new website, ourjourneyhome.com, will be up and running, George?
Yeah, we've currently got a single landing page, but within the next few weeks it's going to be functional. There are a couple of venues that are still to be confirmed for the European tour, and then tickets are going on sale for these events. So we're really, really excited about that because the responses we're getting are just fantastic. People really feeling it. And then we're heading over to Vancouver and Canada, and then down through the US. And that's one thing. If we haven't quite got some serious contacts going in the US yet, so if anybody's interested in sponsoring us to come over, we'd very much appreciate that. They can get in contact with us through the site.
All right, excellent. There you have it. Get in contact with George if you want to get him over to the United States as well, of course. Okay, well, stay with us, George. We'll just take a short little break here, and then we'll continue with the second hour shortly. Welcome back to the second hour together with George Kavassilas. We are continuing our interesting conversation basically about the ascension process or our journey home, as George calls it. And I want to ask you a little bit more about the ET races as well that you talked about. We have the benevolent and the malevolent. We have different watchers and overseers of this process as well. But what will happen with those particular races, George? Will they go through the same process that we go? Will they ascend? Will they progress forward as well, George?
Yeah, everybody that's involved with what's going on here are having actually an incredible growth happening within their soul. Now, even beings who are manipulating, they are actually learning so much about life and about us and about the universe, about the construct of light. It really accelerates everybody who's involved. And will they actually ascend this time with us? No, they won't. There'll be very, very few. If they're not in the fifth dimensional paradigm after having Earth experiences, then they're not actually going to incarnate. There are a few, like one member of my family I know, that my father, who had a life here, and when he passed over, he went to the fifth dimension, and he and I have had some wonderful interactions since. And when we go through these openings, these organic openings, which I've spoken of on many occasions about part of the ascension process, we will actually be meeting members of our friends and family that we had here on Earth, on the earthly plane, and also we'll be reuniting with members of family on a universal level as well. So that's how they will be able to ascend. But if they have not had lives here on Earth, then they won't be able to ascend. That won't be possible, because the whole point of coming to the Earth plane and incarnating is to actually rebalance the soul, and you can't do that anywhere else. At this stage. So once Mother Earth ascends, there's actually other planetary systems that are being set up like Mother Earth. And I recently met so the people who are actually the incarnations here on this Earth who are observing the process, because they are the planetary bodies that are going to be taking on the process next. And I find that fascinating. And even just recently I had a talk here in Sydney, and a lady came up to me and said, I'm one of those planets, and I could just feel it. It was all through her energy, and I was just so honored to be in her presence. I was really, really grateful that, a being can step up to the plate and say, I will manifest myself as a planet, and I'm going to take the process on next, because the divine feminine has led the way by creating the environment and the energetic patterns we have had here. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's a very, very difficult journey. So that I find that absolutely amazing, that there's people here incarnate on Earth who are the planets and the stars who are taking this on next. And so many people will go and incarnate into these realities, and the process will continue on other planetary bodies and in other star systems. But this planet, Mother Earth, she's ascending, and so there won't be anything left of her in the lower vibratory realms after she ascends.
So what will the physical universe change, or is it just our solar system or the galaxy, or how far does this extend then, George?
Yeah, the process is on the continuation, and so when this planet ascends, that's all it will be at this stage, will be this planet. There's a shift taking place with the whole solar system. It'll go through a change somewhat. The sun is changing as well, but it won't be the same like what this planet experiences. She's actually going to become a being of light. So from the lower domain, she'll appear as another star. And the color or the flavor of the light that she's going to give off, I don't have a full understanding of exactly if this is true yet, but my feelings over the last few years are showing me that it's going to be like a gentle magenta color. That's my understanding of the color that she will emit once she ascends. So, and the sun too, once it goes through these changes, it won't be as harsh as it is now. Because it's only really harsh now and getting harsher and more intense with its energies because of this influx of energy through the center of the galaxy. And it as a being will transform the way it expresses itself. So as we experience the sun now won't be exactly how it will be after this process either.
Have we or Earth been through a similar process before? Have something like this happened in a previous cycle, but on the same spot, on the same planet?
No, Mother Earth has been on a path of devolution for a very, very long time. And it bottomed out in the Dark Ages, and now she's coming back up in a great hurry. So that's the process here on this planet. Have other planets turned into stars? Sure, it happens all the time in the universe. But what gets birthed is a different type of expression of life. Nowhere else in the universe has there ever been a birthing of a complete universal embodiment of universal consciousness. Okay, this is the first planet actually achieved that, and there's on this planet there's people that have reached levels of ascended state of being, but they've all been within the fourth dimensional paradigm. So, the old program of the Kundalini going up the spine through the chakras and hitting the pineal gland and reaching a version of enlightenment, that's the old program, So that's, if people still feel that is what they need to achieve in life, then that's great. That's their journey. That's great for them. But, there are those of us who've been here and done that ages ago, and now we're here on this new process, achieving this full-blown version of what it means to be an ascended being. So, yeah.
What's your view on the some of the modern science that says that goes into Big Bang? It talks about an age of the universe as being 13 to 14 billion years. Have everything unfolded and happened during that time process, or when you talk about these greater cycles and so forth, does that extend beyond that point? Maybe you don't even recognize the idea of a Big Bang at all, huh?
Yeah, the Big Bang theory to me is quite accurate in a way, but I don't agree with the time frame. I mean, I really don't. We're talking eons of evolution in the universe. This level of cosmos has been around for a very, very long time. I mean, I actually remember right back to when the first systems were being manifested, and the first life forms beyond any microorganism ended up being insect in nature, because the reality was so harsh. So all the life forms had actually a very hard exterior, and through time things started getting a little bit softer, so the environment wasn't as harsh, and then you started having more the reptilian and draconian reptilian races. The draconians came first, actually, and the reptilians are offshoot cousins. And then things softened up again, and then you had the more mammalian sort of life forms start to emerge, and much softer skinned races emerge. So that's been the process. But the very, very first beginnings of life manifested in the cosmos goes way beyond 14 billion years. We're talking not even trillions of years, way beyond that. Very, very long time indeed.
So there's a number of things we can discuss in terms of both your past, but also, I guess, in sense of where we are going, and maybe also how the process of what we're going through now is maybe attempted to be thwarted by the powers that be, that they might actually try to step in there in one or another way. They're going to try to maybe do what they can in order to prevent this, although we're talking about a very obviously incredible force here, if we listen to your point of view here, George. And so the question is what they will be able to do, and if they'll be able to bypass this in another way. People are, as we talked briefly about last time, looking at technology as being in a kind of an escape out through this. There are even developments of super soldiers and other things like that as well. And this, you even have a personal relationship to that process as well. Is that something that you still think about or take into account or even worry about, George, or have you dropped that whole area, so to speak?
Oh, no, I am very vigilant within myself, because I've been subjected to the programs. And, people have been abducted, and they have programs tailored to their individual journeys. And because they have an understanding of the role that I was going to play here, they've always tried to stop me. And so I had tailor-made programs to my journey. And you'd be surprised how many people have got them on the planet. You'd be absolutely shocked to know that there's millions and millions and millions of people who have been abducted and have programs. And so really the main point is to be vigilant within yourself, to know which are your thoughts and which ones are not your thoughts. And people go, oh, look, he's just another program, so whatever he's sharing mustn't be true because he's still programmed. So, a lot of people like to think that way because it's easier for them to think that way rather than start contemplating the real truth of what's going on. So for me, I'm very vigilant, and the super soldier thing is a very, very big story there, because why does it exist in the first place? Why are they trying to make super soldiers of the human race? If we really are beings that are weak and pathetic, and we squabble and we fight, and we have this weak, soft skin, and we're so vulnerable, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
Why bother? And you really got to understand what's going on here. I mean, when I say to people, we have all the codes in our genetics, and our genes are the number one commodity in the universe, I'm telling you, that is what's going on here. And the idea of making super soldiers has everything to do with accessing the life force through our genes. And some of these super soldier programs, my goodness, the ones I witnessed myself firsthand off the coast of Costa Rica were absolutely phenomenal, because they're not creating soldiers for keeping crowds in line. That's the very, very bottom of the whole program. Okay, we're talking, and I'm not even talking about super soldiers who have the ability to kill people, using mind power, because that's already been attempted on me too. And really, your inner light and consciousness defeats all of that. But what I'm talking about here is off-world overlords who their main interest is in creating very powerful collectives, because at the moment they are controlling these collective hive minds. They're quite big. There's some very big and powerful collectives out there, and they are being turned into paradigms. Now, if you have the ability, it's like if you use a computer and it's got a certain processor that has a certain amount of power and can do so much. If you have a far, far more powerful computer, the most powerful that's ever existed, aren't you going to have so much more power and accomplish so much more?
Yeah.
And therefore have control over so much more? So if you look at our genes accessing all the codes to the universe, the life force of the universe is accessible through our codes. Therefore, if you can control and manipulate those genes, therefore you have access to power like you've never had before. And that's why I say to people, when people are praying in the churches and all that, all these false gods, they've never ever been fed so much power ever in existence than what they are currently getting right now. It's like a drug, and they are who they are because of that feeding and that power that they're getting. And so here you have these collectives. The way they're training them, I'll explain to you how they're training them.
Mm-hmm.
What I saw there was they've got like mechanical droids, and they use them in the water because they're combining too the abilities of other beings like dolphin beings and what have you. And it's all about being able to control more than one being at the same time. So they begin by training them with just a single connection to a single unit, being like a little android thing, and they were swimming in the water with them. And then they sort of progress to a point where they can control like a school of fish. Okay, they're not controlling fish, but they're controlling droids that swim through the water, or like a group of like mechanical crabs. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was seeing that they were training with in the water. And then it gets to the point where they're controlling 20, and then 30, and then 40, and then 50. So you can imagine what sort of mind power we're talking about. And then they're controlling them not by actually physically swimming with them, but by astrally projecting themselves, sort of like remote viewing sort of consciousness, moving along with these schools of these creatures. And then the big transition from then goes to actually moving two things independently, because what they were doing up until now was having many things moving together all at the same time. Like you see a school of fish all turn, or a flock of birds, they'll all turn in the sky at the same time.
Right.
That, as hard as that seems, that's easy. Okay? Now, what's really difficult is to get two things to function independently at the same time, doing two different things. And then they progress, and they train them up so they can then command collectives. Because when you meet, let's say, a race of greys, you'll come across this collective hive mind, and these greys are all being controlled through this collective, kind of like an ant's nest or a beehive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So instead of being done, say, through chemical processes, these are being done through mind power. And this is what it means to be indoctrinated or assimilated into a collective. And so these beings are so hell-bent, for want of a better term, through their insane thirst of power to create demigods out of humans. But these demigods are going to be pawns to them. And these are people who have been inbred in these training programs. They've never seen the light of day outside these programs. You know, this is what a lot of the Montauk projects and things were all about. You know, finding the right people with the right juice in their system so they can drive that time chair back in the Montauk projects. And then those breeding programs continued. And they've turned them into these super soldiers. And it's horrendous what's going on behind the scenes. People really just don't know how full on this is. We're talking about creating demigods out of these super soldiers, and they're complete pawns to these off-world overlords. So if they can control a whole group themselves of these little demigods, if you could think of it like a pyramid structure, you know?
Yeah.
Each demigod has its own pyramid structure, and then you've got each one of those connected to a much higher collective, who are then connected to a higher collective. So you can imagine what sort of power structure we're talking about.
And it's a interdimensional power structure as well. It's going through from upper levels of the construction of the universe and the spirit world, pretty much down to the physical level as well. Then, right?
Yeah, well, I won't say to the higher levels. For me, again, the model that I present, these reach up into the fourth dimension because,
right.
Yeah, you'll hear people talk about the 24 dimensions and 15-dimensional Dracos, or you'll hear all these things thrown around. And for me, all of that's been shared and expressed, who talk that way, and the expressions of life that they're actually talking about, for me, are all inside the fourth dimension. Because again, I'll reiterate, the fourth dimension is the largest in physical size. It is so big, and there's actually, these collectives have gotten so powerful that you have entities at the very top of these collectives, and you have thousands upon thousands of extraterrestrial races that have been assimilated into these collectives. And when they look up inside these collectives, inside these paradigms, they have their own spiritual hierarchies, angelic groups, ascended masters, you know, and there's an entity at the top of that playing God. And I just want people to grasp what I'm talking about here, because the fifth dimension that I speak of is beyond that version of existence. Mm-hmm. So when I talk about extraterrestrials that are we being exposed to here on this planet, who come from within inside these paradigms, I hope you now begin to get a grasp of what I'm talking about. They are massive collectives, and they go what would seem interdimensional, because the fourth dimensional paradigm is made up of so many different frequencies and layers and overtones of realities. It is enormous, and it can actually be seen from inside these paradigms. You look up and you think you're looking at a whole universe, and you're not. You're actually looking at a paradigm. Because once again, Henrik, I will reiterate, we're talking about eons and eons of evolution, and there are beings who have evolved into very, very powerful beings who have created realities, paradigms that they control themselves.
You mentioned before combining various animals or properties of various animals. That you know, rings of this idea of the chimeras in the past, that you have different qualities of animals. These are mythological stories and legends in the past, but there are many people speculated that there actually was high technology in the past, including maybe even that the human race have been manipulated genetically. Do you think that's true then, in that sense? And are these stories that we're getting from the past kind of an evidence that this has been going on previously as well?
Oh, absolutely. The genetic experiments that have been taking place here, you know, from day one, I mean, the original seeding to create the human embodiment, you know, we didn't evolve out of the apes. But what they did is they had a humanoid being that was indigenous to this planet. You have to have that. Otherwise, you can then, as a race, not be able just to plonk yourself onto that planet. You've got to merge with the life, and you've got to become, like, it's about, every planet has its own vibrational pattern of life. So when I was standing on Mars, I felt really uncomfortable, you know, because, you know, that's the understanding of the story and the journey that I took to Mars. So that when I got back from Mars, I felt really awful for about a week. It took me a long time to get over that. The moon, I've been taken to the moon. That felt really sterile and empty. It was an awful feeling on the moon. But there are some other worlds. I went to actually the home world of the cricket races, and that was an amazing place. I would never have thought I would like the world of the cricket races, you know, but incredible harmonics that place had. And now I understand as a child I used to enjoy lying on the grass and listening to the crickets, you know, resonating in my ears. So there's some sort of familiarity there. But, you know, when you've got to seed life onto a particular planet, which was what was done here on Earth, where because we are the microcosm of the macrocosm, all life is represented here in our embodiments. So this generic form called human was created so any extraterrestrial life could incarnate into human form. Mm-hmm. See? So in the beginning, you had the original humanoid indigenous to the Earth that was created, and then all the races started coming here and merging their genetics. And then, unfortunately, you had unsavory races that came and started really messing up with things. So at one stage we were incredibly gifted and powerful, and then certain races came along who were very, very jealous because, you know, they took notice. What's all the attention on this planet? Why there's so much energy and attention being invested into this one planetary body? They got curious, you know, because we're right out on the edge of a galaxy. What's going on? You know?
That's right.
Because that's what they do. It's like street gangs, you know, like mafia mobs. They keep an eye on things and they look where the money goes or where the energy goes, where the power goes and who's what. And that's how they behave. And when they took notice of what was going on here, they started moving in on the place, you know. And it's been this interesting battle ever since. And so, yeah, many genetic experiments have taken place. But the original seeding and creating of the human form was in a very magical time. And we are the end result of every race out there blending its genetics with the very original Earth humanoid. And we created a human form, a godly being that encapsulates all the codes of life. So the idea of Anunnaki coming here and creating human slaves is not the original intention of our existence. That happened much further down the track. That happened much later. And that's by a very unsavory group indeed who, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the original Anunnaki were actually positive beings, but their identity has been stolen because, you know, whether they're called the Shining Ones or you call them the Tuatha De Danann or whatever you want to call them, it's an original group who are part of the seeding of life here. But my understanding is a little bit different to other people's, but I don't feel that the original Anunnaki are evil beings. They did not create slaves. That's an imposter group that came much later than that.
Do you know if there have been any specific genetic manipulation of certain human beings? These may be eventually then becoming the pharaohs, later the royal families, today the elite, still the royal families, I guess, and the much in the interbreeding that has also happened within these specific lines. Maybe this is to hold a certain genetic strand or structure, and as an outcrop of that question, maybe these are also then manipulated by these higher beings in order for them to manipulate and control humanity, them being kind of the representatives of the malevolent, ET forces here on Earth. How about that, George?
Oh, mate, I think I should be interviewing you because you nailed it. That's exactly what's been happening. And you know what? the way they've gone about it, because these groups, there's groups who focus on physicality. What they've gone around is they've gone marauding all the different races on all the different systems. We're talking intergalactic now, not just in this galaxy. And they've taken the best genetics from everyone and everything. And, they have become very physically beautiful, and they have become very powerful indeed in the way they express themselves. So that's exactly what's happened. And their focus is more physical, beauty-orientated, and more power-orientated. And so they did create this, and they have quite a superiority complex, they really do. And you can see how it rubs off on these elitist groups and these self-righteous groups and the way they express themselves. And, they're just the meager slaves and, we're too good for them. And they have this real distinct, class distinctions that have been created in our societies. So that's exactly exactly what has gone on, and for them to have their like foot soldiers on the ground, so to speak, here on the planet to do their dirty work for them. Yeah. And, you know, the irony is they make them feel high and mighty, like they're special and they're chosen. And It's just a joke, really. It's a joke. It really is. I'm going to throw a real curly one in and say, you know, all you members of the ruling elite and the shadow government, you are so being played for fools. And I say that on my live presentations too. You are being played for fools, and I say, if any of you listening have a problem with that, you come and see me, because I know what I'm talking about, because I've mixed in your circles, and some of you will remember me, and you know, you're all in for a rude shock. They are, Henrik. They are in for a very rude shock, because they think so high and mighty of themselves, and they are just pawns. And most of them, I'll tell you now, most of the ruling elite, they're being led to the demise, because they don't want too many middle management when this big change happens. So if you're going into an underground base, then you better think again why you're being lured into an underground base, thinking, you know, that you're one of the ones ahead of everybody else, that you're one of the chosen ones. When this Earth's crust is going to go, you better think again.
How many of them do you think know the full story of this? Have there been many, or this is very difficult obviously to know, but to do, if we speculate, or maybe you have other information about this, if they are, maybe there are certain elected few within this tiny group that actually knows the full story in terms of actually being in communication with you know, ET here, and them getting, you know, direct instructions from that, or is it more of a mind control level that there's something from their point of view more etherical or is driving them? They might not be in the full consciousness of what they actually are doing and implementing here on Earth. What's your take on that?
Yeah, first of all, I'll say there's never one rule fits all, okay? So you have a handful of members within the ruling elite and the shadow government and all that sort of secret hierarchy that actually would be so happy to hear what I'm saying, and they know that what I'm sharing is real and is true, and they're actually playing a very, very difficult and challenging role, because they have to bide their time until the big changes happen, and there'll be the odd one or two in that realm that are actually, I would say, on our side, if you want to put it that way. But the overwhelming majority of them, no, they're all in for a rude shock. And, you know, some of them will end up ascending because they're going to wake up and they're going to realize and rebalance themselves. And they're in for a really tough time. They really are, because like a drug addict, the more you're entrenched into that drug, the harder it is to give up, the more painful it is when you've got to cleanse yourself. So, you know, all the energetic patterns that they deal with on a regular basis to do with power and control and greed and lust and desire, which is where they get manipulated on. Oh, Henrik, mate, let me tell you, when these members of the ruling elite mix with these off-world overlords and these extraterrestrial overlords, when they get given, I'll get into this because this is very important to understand just how manipulated they are, because in these circles, sexual desire is one of the most powerful tools that they use. And so when they are given a human-alien hybrid to actually have as to I would say be given pleasure with, okay, put it that way. Yeah. Never ever will they have been stimulated like these half-human hybrids stimulate people. Okay, what they do to the energetic body of the human, when they know exactly what to do, Henrik, and the degree of stimulation, once it's been said in these circles, once they've had one of these hybrids, they can never go back to a full earth human woman again, you know, because the degree of stimulation is so high that they're gone from that moment on. It's like a drug. They can never go back. And this is how they lure them, and they suck them in this way. And it's just, you know, you just got to know what's going on behind the scenes to understand just the degree of manipulation, how these people are just played like puppets and all the desires are met. And it's disgusting, really, what's going on there.
So how is that possible from the hybrid point of view? Do they have a different, energetic bodies? Is it an energy thing, or what is going on there? Why are they so different, and why are they so different to the human experience, if I put it that way?
Yeah, because our human senses are so limited because of our construct. They are crossbred, and so, you know, I've often said when you connect like with one of these false ascended masters and angels, they stroke you, you know, they stimulate you. It's just like people will meditate and they'll consume energy and they'll bliss out. You know, it's no different to getting stoned here on this level, taking drugs. You're consuming an energetic drug rather than a physical drug, and people just bliss out, you know, and they have no idea that that's what's happening to them. And these beings can literally, once you connect with, if you set your intention, you're connecting with an angel or ascended master, and you start bringing their energy in, that's it, mate. They're going to start stroking you, and they're going to make you feel euphoric and loved and beautiful. And so you got to understand that these beings have this very good knowledge of the makeup of the human body, and they can focus in on your sacral chakra or your base chakra or whatever chakra they need to, and they will play you like a musical instrument. Okay? They really know what they're doing. No different to somebody here physically knowing what they're doing. Well, you've got to understand, combine the physical and the energetic, and then you understand what we're talking about.
It's interesting here, but I'm thinking about different kind of, drugs and things like this as well. I remember hearing about the adrenochrome, something that is, produced by the adrenal gland as well. And I've heard stories about this being, partial of the whole satanic ritual and things like that, that you traumatize people so much that they release huge amounts of adrenaline into their bodies and so forth as well. And as a kind of an explanation, I guess, in one sense, for some of these satanic rituals then is because the people can actually, they get incredibly high in some regards of drinking the blood, eating the flesh, in some regards just going for the adrenochrome straight away. Is that part, have you heard about this before? Is that part of this whole idea about the rituals and the satanic abuse that is happening in the world as well?
It is, and I'll use myself as an example, okay? When I was abducted once, I was being horrendously tortured when I was younger, and I was so frightened, and I actually went into the space where I could actually see these different layers of things that were going on around me, and I had beings that were taking out glandular secretions out of my body, okay? And they were actually feeding off that. It was like it's like cocaine for them, if I can use it as an example, okay?
Right.
Because of what they did to me and the way my glands were actually behaving. And then you had these other beings on like an astral realm who were feeding off my fear. And then you had other beings on another part, so maybe another astral vibrational realm. I couldn't see exactly where they were, but I could see them, and they were feeding off just the energy that was being emitted by my glandular secretion. It was like vultures. They just moved in all around it and just feeding off the energy emanating from it. So you have beings that feed off the physical substances, and then you have beings that feed off the energetic emanations from the substances, and then beings feeding off my fear out of my auric field. It was like a feeding frenzy on all these levels. It horrified me. It's taken me a long time to come to terms with all these experiences that I've had. And, it's disgusting what goes on behind the scenes when you really, really know what's happening. It was hard for me back then as a kid to deal with all that sort of stuff.
Oh, of course, absolutely. And it's kind of, it seems to be that movie, the Monsters, Inc. seems pretty true. Don't know if you recall that one, but there are these different dimensional races that are opening doors into kids' bedrooms at night to scare them in order to take the energy from our world and put them into their world, pretty much. It's like when
I saw that, I freaked out when I saw that movie. It's so true. There's so much truth to it. It's amazing where they get their information from to make these films.
Maybe they know something, huh? In one regard, telling you about what is happening, really, in one sense.
No, they know something, all right. They do, yeah.
If we go back to the elite or some of the royal families here again, do you believe then that they also have a higher content of ET DNA? I mean, again, speculations about them being reptilians in many, to large extent, or is it? Are they part Greys or are they part something else? Do you have any information about that, George?
Yeah, I can tell you that there are reptilian clans to do with the ruling elite. That is for sure. No doubt about that whatsoever. That's 100% true. But there are also other races involved. It's not just reptilians. And there's also a group of reptilians. Okay, let's look at this objectively, okay? This planet's pretty old, and hundreds of millions of years ago we had reptilians that walked this earth, what we call dinosaurs, right? What people really should take into consideration is 500 million years of evolution.
That's right.
Right? People don't understand that there are reptilian clans that have been on this planet for over 500 million years. Okay? Now, first I'm going to say there is a group who are actually benevolent, who are just buying their time and are going through the phase because they are helping on realities and paradigms, and they're kind of like, you know, when they're kind of like the crew in the engine room. You know, they're doing this really hard slog behind the scenes that nobody's aware of. And then you have other reptilian groups who are quite nasty. They have become very self-righteous, and they feel like they own the place, and everyone is beholden to them. So there's never one thing going on. That's what people fall into the trap in. You've got to look at this from many variables involved. And then there's other beings as well. When you start looking at some of the greys, you start looking at even some of the bird races and some of the lion beings. Some of the lion beings are fantastic people. They really are. But you get the odd ones who are quite arrogant as well. So it's not one race is like this and one race is like that, you know?
Right.
Never judge a book by its cover. That's the mistake people make. So, you know, there's this propaganda on the planet that reptilians are evil. Oh, all reptilians are evil, you know? And they're like, show me a good one. You know, there's all these people with such small minds who are just, they themselves, their minds are just fallen victim to the conspiratorial drama that's going on the planet at the moment. It's the reality is so much grander. You know, you got to realize that you're just being given pretty much a slice of the pie, and you got to stop making that the whole. You got to expand your awareness and see life for what it truly is. And it's not just one race. They want you to blame it on one race, but there's so much more than that. Yes, the reptilians are controlling a lot. Is there DNA involved? Absolutely it is. But you've got to realize there's not just the reptilians, there's other races as well.
And we're, when it comes to Earth, then we're kind of the newcomers to the scene. Now, do you think that reptilians have stayed here in one way or another all that time, or did they at some point during their evolutionary path, and as you say, that they had 500 million years or so to develop into a sentient being, going from the large, dinosaurs, reptilians, into a sentient being? Did they take off somewhere else into the solar system, other parts of the universe, or did some of them even stay on the Earth? And so, where are they? If so, underground or what?
Yeah, that's why I said the hard workers in the engine room behind the scenes. There is a clan here, and they are known as the Blue Dragon Clan. Now, oh crikey, I'm tingling as I'm telling you this. So they've got their own vibrational paradigm which can't be breached by the others. They've made sure of that, and Mother Earth has made sure of that, because they are behind the scenes. They are holding energetic patterns that are required of the level of the personality of Mother Earth, known as Lady Gaia. That's the earthly personality that's she's actually suffering and is feeling a lot of pain. When you go deeper than that, you start getting into much deeper aspects of her, and you get into her core heart, and that's where you hit the Christ Sophia, divine feminine aspect of her being. But, like we have our earthly personalities, so does she on this level of existence. And the Blue Dragon clans are helping her with that energy. That's the energy she required to work with in order for her to manifest herself the way she has, with the oceans and the ecosystems that we're having and everything like that.
Interesting. So you mentioned before as well, obviously, the moon and Mars and certain experiences that you had there. Mm-hmm. And now, considering that, I'd like to ask you what is going on the moon and the Mars? Why haven't we been back to the moon? Why haven't we sent more missions to Mars? Were we warned off? Were we not allowed to go there again? Or what do you think happened there if we look at it from the point of view of the NASA space program going there in the late 60s, did they encounter something on the moon, do you think?
Yeah, well, firstly, they didn't go there on their own accord. They did actually go to the moon, the first couple of missions. That's granted. Okay? But if you think they went there in that little tin can, you better think again. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's absurd to think that, for starters. Really. If you just look at the tin can, and that's what all it was, and the spacesuits they were using and everything, like, come on. You know?
Right.
Really. No, really. And it's just amazing how naive the human race has become. And they were actually helped, and that's the deals that Truman and Eisenhower did to help America come to the forefront and look like, they were so far ahead of everybody else. So it was all deals done behind the scenes. And then after that, it's like, nah. And then Stanley Kubrick, kicked in and helped along with the show. So that's the way it went as far as visits to the moon goes. And, we haven't gone back there because in that capacity, but we're going there all the time because now we have ships that go, into other frequencies. So we've got fleets and fleets and fleets of ships in the shadow government. It's just amazing how many Earth UFOs there are. The overwhelming majority of sightings are shadow government craft.
Yeah.
By a long shot, people just got to realize how far ahead everything is going behind the scenes. And Mars, my goodness, there's about 1 million people there already, Henry. And to think that sending a probe to Mars is the forefront of human evolution, what a joke. I mean, that is the biggest joke being played, what a charade being played on the human race. Really. Here's people like me going there, people getting taken against their will, people trying to speak up from behind the scenes about what's going on Mars. We're all being called loonies and crazies, whereas they're just not looking at themselves. They're not asking themselves why I would believe that a probe to Mars is a forefront of our evolution. I mean, come on, guys, wake up.
Yeah.
There's 1 million people on Mars already. They're preparing for the massive changes. It's called Project Genesis. There's other aspects to that project which have other names, but I know it as Project Genesis, as the overall project, and they're reseeding Mars with Earth humans. They're collaborating with the ETs that live in the ground, underground in Mars, and they're staying mostly underground, not only because they don't want to be seen, but because when Mother Earth turns into a star, there's going to be side effects of when she actually expands and becomes a body of light. So they've got to ride through that wave of energy that's going to hit the planet as well. They're all preparing behind the scenes.
So,
and we're being treated like mushrooms, Henry, kept in the dark and fed BS.
So is that why they're going to Mars and kind of terraforming that to fit their needs so they can live there with Project Genesis because they want to escape the events that are going to unfold on Earth?
Absolutely. And that's just one arm of the, intergalactic cabal. So not everybody's going to go there, of course. It's just the groups that have been assigned to that. It's like you've got a mafia. You've got different groups of mafia,
Sure.
And, or let's say you've got the different groups fighting a war that come in to, fight together. And then when they conquer the enemy, then the spoils get given out, if you want to look at it that way. So certain people will go to Mars. Others will go off-world to other planetary systems, and people will be led by their intuition to either. People are not going to agree with me. They're not going to stay on Mother Earth and go through those doorways. They're just going to think that's insane, and they're just going to be led to go on these ships with the Galactic Federation of Light or some other off-world empire and group. And they're going to feel that that's the right path for them. But over time, they're going to discover that that's going back into the matrix of the cosmic matrix.
How much do you attribute to true human ingenuity and technology development when it comes to, let's say, some of these crafts that they were going to the moon and Mars with then? Was this acquired by, downing other crafts? We hear stories about crashed UFOs and then human beings back engineering that technology, or did they get help from day one by other groups out there? What do you think?
Yeah, in the beginning it was back engineering, and really we're clever. We're a very clever race. I mean, they're working hard constantly to keep us downtrodden, to keep us, suppressed. So that's their biggest challenge, is to actually slow us down. So there's a lot of ingenuity that's that's happened on behalf of the human race. We've got to give credit where it's due. We're actually a very, very clever lot, really, in the galaxy. And they're frightened of that because every time they create this paradigm of suppression, we always find a way to get through it,
Yeah, well, let's
get around it.
I believe that too. We have ingenuity. We're a smart little bunch, and especially
We're ingenious. We're so clever, and that just freaks them out because here they are. They've tried throughout my life to stop me. They've pumped me full of drugs, mind control drugs, implants, everything to stop me. They've tried eliminating me in my life, and when that's happened, my inner lights just come out and protected me and stopped them in their tracks. And on the very small odd occasion, some other beings intervened. But to know that you are sovereign, you're a sovereign being of life. Come on, that's the ultimate power. I don't want anyone to know. Henrik, we are so powerful. We are just so powerful. But anyway, they just don't want us to know that because they're so frightened of what we're capable of.
So what if we talk a little bit more here as we're coming towards the end here of our time for this time, George, about the events again here of what you have pinned down to 21st of March 2013 and how you expect this to unfold. If you have any idea of what is going to happen first, or are people individually going to ascend, and does that mean that other people will see that, on the earth happening? Would that mean that just from our point of view that will disappear? Will one by one go, or everybody at once? How do you have any idea of how the nature of this, how this will unfold, George? Then?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a feel for how it's going to happen. I'll just share my take on it and my perspective. I feel it's quite an accurate one, and is that a biased opinion? Of course it is. George's ego will will always claim that.
Right.
But no, really, from all my experiences I've had, my travels through the universe and interactions on so many different levels of life, for me it's, look, there's going to be these doorways that will start to open. They're organic in nature, and they'll begin to open at the end of this year, and they'll go right through till, I would say, the end of next year. 21st of December 2012 is my understanding when these doorways are actually going to close.
Mm-hmm.
So on that point, like, Mother Earth is straightening up on her axis, so she needs to find center just like we do, okay?
Yeah.
So already she's straightening up, just nudging. But soon, when she hits the 21st December 2012, she's going to move like in a fluid movement all the way, and she's going to keep going. And then on the 21st of March 2013, that's when she hits center. So the scientific data and the evidence of a pole shift that's coming is valid as far as I'm concerned. I for one feel and know within my heart that that's what's going to take place. And so I say to people, again, don't take my word for it. Ask Mother Earth, because she has her own journey, and that's where I get my knowing from, my own inner feelings and inner heart connection with not only my higher essence, which is one with the universe, but also you get the opportunity to connect with Mother Earth as well. So that's my recommendation. And so when these doors open at the end of this year, we're not going to all walk through at the same time. It's going to be some groups will go in, and then some members of those groups, then they're going to come back out. And I feel I'm going to be one of these people that are going to go through and then come back out and help guide and help those and help to provide more triggers for those who are going to feel like it's their path to go through these doorways. And I'm not talking about stargates, and I'm not talking about technological wormholes or anything of that nature. I'm actually talking about organic openings in the universe, on the Earth plane, into higher dimensional plane of the universe, the fifth dimension. But not going out into the universe. It's actually on this planet, because that's what we would call Avalon. We would call it Valhalla. We would call it Shambhala. That's what this realm is known. Tula. It's got many names in different cultures, and I've traveled there already, not with my body, but with my consciousness. And I've manifested a body there and had meetings there, and our bodies on that level of existence have a single energetic center. The seven chakras are actually a lower body. It's the 4D body. But the fifth dimension, you're back in oneness and harmony with creation. So that's why you have a single energetic center. So it's I've taken the travels, I've had the journeys, and I have a really good point of reference where everything fits. And also, people are already leaving the planet. There's 1 million people on Mars from Earth already, some unfortunately against their will. Some are from the super soldier programs, and quite a few feel quite privileged to be there because they think they've gotten away from all the troubles. And then there'll be those who will be taken on spaceships, and that'll come in different forms. And then there's the creme de la creme of the lure to take people off world will have to be the beings that come and pose as beings of light, because I'll tell you now, I have been clawed, my astral body has been clawed out of my physical body by a draconian, right?
Okay.
So if you just think what I just said, my astral body was clawed out of my physical body by a draconian, a scaly draconian. So if a scaly draconian has the power to do that, imagine what one of these beings from the highest reaches of the fourth dimension are capable of, the ones that come and pose as beings of light, as angels or ascended masters or as these godly beings. That's going to be the creme de la creme. They're going to come here, they'll pose as beings of light, and they'll be able to say, come with me, I'll help you ascend. I'm the pathway to ascension. And they'll take people out of body. And that's going to be an amazing, amazing lure, because they're going to be showered with this love and light, and they're going to fall for it. And so people who are more religiously minded and more new age minded, they're going to fall for that one.
That's interesting. So we have the false light to the people of the false light in that sense. And what is their what do you think that are they taking the souls and the spirit of people just to destroy them, or are they going to use them in some way? Why do they do this, do you think?
Yeah, they won't destroy them because they're too precious. We're too precious a commodity, right? And so what they've done is they've created, their synthetic light bodies, right? And I actually have a memory of doing this myself. Remember I said I've been everything and I've done everything?
Right.
And this is the amazing thing. When your veil starts to lift, you really understand how these beings operate because you remember doing it yourself. You start waking up to that. And I don't have a whole lot of detail to it, but I do remember we used mathematical constructs, to create the body. Because when you go up into the higher, where we're headed, like when we ascend, is beyond mathematical construct. No energetic centers, pure expression of pure consciousness of light, You'll be an embodiment of pure universal light. So we're going beyond mathematical construct. And people who are into maths will just go, that's stupid, that's crazy, because nothing exists beyond maths. Well, what I've got to say to people is life is infinite, and yes, life definitely exists beyond mathematics. Because if you say maths is all there is, then you put a finite existence on things. So that blows quantum out the window, right?
Right.
So let's just get real here. And people who like numbers, you've got to realize what maths and numbers are is a quantifiable language. So they're not into the artistic way of expressing life, the flowing, the fluid, the creative, the expressive, in dance and in art, right? These people are in quantifiable language of numbers, nuts and bolts. That's the way they look at life. And they've got to realize that it's just a language, because if you have a distance, you can measure it in millimeters, in inches, in centimeters, right? The numbers are arbitrary. They don't like to hear that, but they've got to realize that all it is a language that defines life. It expresses life. It labels life, That's what numbers do. Now, if you manifest life from numbers, if you use mathematical templates to create life, then you're synthetically creating life, right? So that's the bit that people who are into numbers better get a handle on, because that's reality. I'm just sharing reality with you, because life is manifested organically and naturally from the intention. The idea comes first and then it gets manifest. It's not maths is first and then life is created. No, that's not the way it works, So I use sacred geometry, but I say to people in my talks, sacred geometry, I use it just for the people who are into numbers, into the quantifiable language of numbers, for them to better understand what I'm saying. So it does come in handy. It's very, very good language, because it does breach borders and barriers and cultural barriers. So in that sense, when they say it's a universal language, it is. It's a very sterile, cold language, but it does work. It has its place, So I'm not just bagging it and putting it down. I'm just trying to be realistic about it. Because even people, you have, religious people who are self-righteous, well, you have number crunchers who are very self-righteous. They love their language. They think it's all it is, right? So I'm just trying to, bring a bit of realism back into their minds and their perspectives as well. So yeah, that's how I see things will be playing out.
Yeah, it's like these entities of incredible intellect, perhaps. Doesn't necessarily mean that they have a lot of spirit behind them, but they know how to manipulate both matter and also then, as you say, numbers in the right way in order to kind of pose as as a kind of a superficial spirituality, if you will, in that sense. That's pretty interesting.
Oh, absolutely. What do you think the Merkaba is?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mathematical construct, Henry.
Yeah.
You can use the Merkaba to explain from a mathematical point of view. You can use it to label life. But if you're going to go about creating life via the template of the Merkaba, that's when you cross the line. That's when you are synthetically creating life. It is then a synthetic mathematical construct. And that's what these beings are using, artificial light bodies. And they create paradigms. I talked about a collective and these realities that get created. So imagine now a whole reality that gets created via a template, a mathematical construct of light.
Yeah.
So you have light paradigms that are artificially created, and beings get taken there, and there'll be a character, and he'll present himself as Jesus, right? And people on the earth plane will get taken there by Jesus, and they experience this light which totally stimulates and strokes their beingness, right? And so they think they're in this euphoric state, being stroked and stimulated, and they're up there with Jesus in the divine light of God. Okay? I've had to deal with these characters. I'm telling you, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just firing my mouth off. I've lived this stuff. That's how I get to actually express it, And I had Lord Sananda, which is the New Age cosmic version of Jesus, turn up in my bedroom. And I just said, go away. It was showering me with all this so-called love and light. And straight away, I could tell it's synthetic, it's artificial. And I said, go away. You have no power over me. And, it's ridiculous. And if people didn't have the points of reference that I did, they fall for it, and they have.
And did that work by you dismissing him, meaning that it's also, we have to be participatory in inviting these characters in, and if we do, they're allowed to grab a hold on us in one sense. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Is that like a law? Yeah.
Oh, exactly. That's exactly how it works. They want you to ask. People meditate, and they willingly bring the light in. I was doing a talk recently in Australia, and in Perth, actually, in the city of Perth. And there was this one gentleman who says he meditates with Saint Germain and brings in the violet flame. And I started talking about how these beings are imposters, and they actually misleading people because you give your power away to them. We've got everything inside of us already. So the notion that we need to meditate and bring light in from anywhere itself is giving your power away straight away.
Right.
So I started exposing all of that, and this entity came through this man, because he was telling us that he brings a violet flame in and puts it in every cell of his body. And I turned around, I said, I'm so sorry to hear that. I said, because I said, this is like heroin now. Like, you're going to hurt, I said to him. Like a heroin addict hurts when they have to get rid of that drug out of their body. I said, you're now going to hurt. To get that entity's got its tentacles into you so deep because you anchored it into every cell of your body. And when you read these New Age channelings, Henry, that's what they're advising people to do. It's nuts. And people are willingly doing it. And they're inviting these entities in. And you should have seen what happened right there in front of everybody. This poor guy. He was just shifting. This entity was coming through, this Saint Germain entity. He was so angry with me, and really we had an intellectual tussle right there in front of the audience, and he was coming through, this guy, and I just exposed this entity for what it was. And they are deceiving humanity like you wouldn't believe.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. There's one note here I'd like to wrap things up on, and that has to do with this the openings that you talked about before, the places of basically transcending over to the other end, maybe even coming and going. Is this anywhere similar to vortex nodes on the planet? Will they appear on a specific location, do you think, for a reason? I mean, is this related to the sacred places idea, or is this merely for the benefit of the people who are ready to transcend, meaning that these doorways will, open up pretty much anywhere where you happen to be, for instance? Is that how it will work, do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly how it worked. Geez, you switched on. I must say, you really have a good intuitive feeling of life. They'll happen anywhere because it's not like exclusive to a sacred site. If you take into consideration people in hospitals, people in prisons, these organic openings will happen anywhere at any time. And there's because this consciousness, this higher consciousness that we're integrating with at the moment will just happen all over the planet. It's not in specific locations anymore. Anyone who focuses on specific locations, that's the old program. Okay, that's the 4D program. It's not like that anymore. And so it'll happen at different times for different people, and it'll be like an intuitive knowing deep inside the person. You'll feel it. You'll feel it within yourself, and you'll just be guided. You'll know exactly where to go, what to do, and how to go about it. That's why you don't have to do a course. You don't have to eat certain foods. You don't have to dress a certain way. You just got to be you,
Yeah.
Because what's good for me is not necessarily what's good for you, Henry. Because if I'm about to reattain balance in my soul, then my journey through the universe has been different to your journey through the universe. Sure, there's been some similarities and we've interacted together and there's been overlapping and we've had some wonderful experiences together. But really, at the end of the day, you're on your journey and I'm on mine. So what I need between now and the next 12 months or so to what set of experiences I need to regain balance in my soul will be different to what set of experiences you need to regain balance in your soul. So I say to people, just be you. It's those simple words, just be. And that's all you got to do. And you got to realize, I had this little saying, I'm not perfect, but I'm perfect the way I am. And people need to realize they are absolutely perfect the way they are right now, today, in this moment. And you love and you accept yourself for the way you are today. And realize that you are truly infinite. Like, I'll get back to that. That experience that I had when I looked outside this universe, having this wonderful exchange with the creator of this universe, and we were contemplating life and truly understanding what it means to be infinite. Oh, mate, it's game over, Henrik. The moment you know, not intellectually, but really know that you are truly infinite, that you always have been, that you always will be, that you've never been born out of anything, that you've always existed and you always will be. That's being infinite. And that means nothing exists beyond you, Henry. Nothing exists beyond me. Nothing exists beyond anybody who's listening to this. Nothing exists beyond us. Therefore, nothing can come in over the top of us. Therefore, once you understand this, they can no longer control you.
I believe that. I think that is absolutely correct. And again, it's about following our own path and doing what we feel is the right thing to do, being in touch with our own personal inner voice and not being distracted by these other, templates that exist out there, or again, maybe these are even entities in one level or another that's trying to, manipulate us into to go down a certain route and so forth as well.
Look, while I've been commenting, on the drama, and I say, look, I warn people of these other beings and I advise people not to get on the ships because there's going to be mass evacuation, especially around the middle of 2012 when things really start to shake, rattle and roll on the planet from the middle to the end of 2012. I say to people, if it's your journey to go on those ships, then by all means go on them. If you don't resonate with what I say to stay on Mother Earth and go through into a higher plane of existence, then by all means go on the ships. I honour all people's journeys. So while I'm making those statements and those comments, that's just me playing my role in the movie. But ultimately, I love everybody unconditionally. So whatever anybody decides to do, then it's important that whatever they feel is right for them, that's what they should do. I can't tell anyone what to do.
Yeah, I believe that. You're absolutely right. George, I guess up next here for you then is you're doing a talk in Melbourne on the 2nd of April, not too far away now, and then you're heading over. When are you heading over to the Spain and UK, and then later up to Sweden? When is your European tour beginning?
Yeah, okay. The European tour starts on the 8th, 7th and 8th is when I'm going to be there. And the times that we're going to be in London, the Glastonbury one is on the 22nd of May, and I can't quite remember off the top of my head, sorry, for the other ones. And then we head over to Sweden, and we head over to Greece and Slovenia And it's just going to be fantastic. Very much looking forward to that, Henrik. Really am.
Yeah, you're going around the world almost as it was. That's excellent. Must be a lot of fun to be on the road as well. I guess it's always in one regard draining to travel, of course, but it's also a lot of fun to see new places and see new faces.
It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It is. It's a lot of hard work. There's, because we're in dualities, there's two sides to it. And I really enjoy being a quiet person at home. Believe it or not, I love being at home and being quiet and enjoying my garden and being with nature and things like that. I really do.
Yeah.
But I have this obligation to my human family, and I really need to do this. I really do. And to the opportunity to be able to share my experiences and my wisdom with my human family is really quite an amazing opportunity as well. So there is a fun side to it. You meet great people along the way. And I hope when we come to Sweden that we get the opportunity to cross paths. I would dearly, dearly love that.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're doing Stockholm, and it's just really looking forward to it.
Absolutely, it's going to be great. And obviously as well here for people who want to find out more information about your talks, first of all, head on over to the main website, georgekavassilas.org. His last name is spelled Kavassilas, Kavassilas, georgekavassilas.org, and just scroll down there and click, find the Our Journey Home Global Tour section, and click on main tour page for the tour dates there as well, for more information about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and also the new website that we're creating, www.our-journey-home.com, and all the tour events and information will be on there. That'll be the actual main site that they'll be able to purchase tickets through as well.
Okay, excellent. ourjourneyhome.com. We will have that linked up as well. It has been really interesting and fun to have you back again, George, listening to more from your perspective and from your viewpoint, and try to unravel some of the dramatic and some, in some regards, strange things that are happening on the planet. But it's always interesting to hear from a different perspective. So we really appreciate your time. It has been great, and keep up the great work, George. And we'll stay in contact, obviously, and we'll try to hook up when you come up here to Sweden, most definitely.
Thank you so much, Henrik. The spice of life, eh? That's why we're all having our own journeys. I love it.
That's right.
And thank you once again for such a wonderful opportunity.
We'll be back with more in just a few days. Check out our website, redicecreations.com, for more radio, TV programs, and regularly updated news. Take a look in our members area for all the material that we have available for you, including films, video interviews, music, audio commentary, and much more. My thanks to Fredrik, Lana, Elizabeth, and to you for listening. Take good care of yourself, and we'll be back with more in just a few days.